Hello students, welcome to the Chamberlain small group model. This is the fourth in the series of presentation on oligopoly models. As we are aware, oligopoly models are something that we have understood as evolving, as dynamic, as complex, and for which there are no single solutions that are available. And that is the reason we have so many models in oligopoly. In the current situation, it is also interesting for us to observe how oligopoly models are at work. Before I go into the presentation, let me just introduce you to the relevance of duopoly models in today's world that we live in. We are aware that in this vaccination market, currently there are only two players. So a clear case of duopoly. So for any student of economics, you have a clear example of duopoly in the two vaccine manufacturers in the country right now. Now, both of them more or less know the market demand and they are to set their prices. So you can see that there is a purchase done by the government, that is different, but there is an amount of vaccine that is going to be left to the market to purchase. If it has to leave the product to be purchased by the market, at what price should it fix to sell in the market? Now, there could be a situation where they are negotiating with each other, which evidently we don't find that negotiation happening. We can just see how it is happening. There was an outcry over the pricing by one of the firms, which was considered to be high. Now, the firm decided to reduce its price. When this firm reduced its price, the second firm responded to it by reducing its price. Now, this is a closed model where there are only two players, and we expect that the two players will play with the price, and one of them will not like to charge high because that manufacturer may lose its customers to the other manufacturer. So we can see this game going for some time till we find the entry of other firms into the market to manufacture vaccines. So we now know that there are newer manufacturers who are entering into the market, and we will have to wait and see what will happen to the price of these two manufacturers. Will they change the price? Will they change the output? How are they going to play in the market with a few firms in the industry? So this few firms in the industry is a subject of oligopoly. And we can see it working out in the vaccine industry as of now. Let me take you through to the theory of the firm. In the traditional microeconomic theory of the firm, we understand that firms are taken as passive price takers, which means that the competitive market decides the price and the participating firms accept whatever price is determined by the market. The traditional theory ignores the study of the behavior of the firms as much as it also ignores the analysis of the interdependent nature of the firm. This was good so long as we were trying to understand the perfect markets. The question now arises when the markets are not perfect and when we have a few sellers, like I just explained, then how will the prices get fixed? How will firms fix their prices? Therefore, firms under the condition of few in the industry, they become price searchers and not price takers. This price searching behavior of firms requires a study. And that is what Chamberlain tried to explain in his model. Edward Hastings Chamberlain was an American economist who published his doctoral thesis in the form of a book, The Theory of Monopolistic Competition, a reorientation of the theory of value, in 1933. He had a chapter on duopoly and oligopoly in this particular book. This book also spurred discussion on competition among few firms. In that sense, it was a beginning of an analysis of pricing when firms are few in number, unlike that of perfect market. The term product differentiation also was introduced in this book, and it became a part of economic literature thereafter. Another important element that I would like to share with you here is, today we talk of behavioral economics and the use of experiments to understand how individuals take their decisions and so on. But let me tell you that Chamberlain was the earliest economist who conducted experiments, the first economist rather, who conducted experiments with his students on price determination. Let us now see what Chamberlain had to explain about price determination under the condition of few firms. Brings this idea of stable equilibrium. He asks this question. He suggests that if all firms charge monopoly price and firms recognize their mutual interdependence, then wouldn't it be possible for industry to maximize the profit and attain stable equilibrium? This was his question. And this gave birth to another idea of studying firms in an interdependent situation. So here on, we study firms as taking interdependent decisions rather than the ones earlier where the decisions were independent. He answered that firms can attain equal maximum profits if they are in this situation where they can make monopolies, they can attain a monopoly solution, and this can be attained without collusion. Without collusion means both the firms or the number of few firms who are there in that market need not really negotiate with each other. Even without negotiation, it is possible to take decision merely by the understanding of each other's decision making processes. He says that entrepreneurs of firms are intelligent and they can recognize the interdependence of their decision to that of decision making by other firms. Also, firms are intelligent enough to learn from past mistakes, and firms do their best when they adopt monopoly price. So when firms take interdependent decision, firms have the benefit, the firm participating in, they have some benefit in terms of price, but they are passively participating, like the independent decision making under Cournot or Bertrand. We also talk about indirect benefits when rivals react to the decisions of the firm which changes its price or output. So if one of the firms changes its price or output, what happens to the rival firm? This was explained in the one of the earlier videos on using reaction curves to prove how firms react when price or output changes. The full effect of industry's stable equilibrium is when firms charge monopoly price and they produce monopoly output. If firms don't recognize interdependence, what happens? Well, industry will reach Cournot equilibrium or Bertrand equilibrium, even otherwise. So, interdependence is a different answer altogether. And to support this argument, he makes this statement: when a move by one seller, when a move by one seller evidently forces the other to make a counter move, he is very stupidly refusing to look further than his nose. If, that word if is important, if he proceeds on the assumption that it will not. So there is no way firms can assume that his action will not bring about a reaction in the decision of the other firm. What kind of assumptions did Chamberlain make? His assumptions are that it's a costless production idea, just like Cournot and Bertrand, that is to simplify this process of analysis. But he moves away from this idea of the plain speaking of the two firms. He believes that firms are not as naive as in the Cournot or in the Bertrand model. He believed that there is competition, unlike the earlier situation where there is no interdependence. Here he believes that there is interdependence among the firms. He also introduces a new concept of industry group, which means that firms in that industry produce similar goods and they are not perfect substitutes of each other, but they are substitutes of each other. There is some element of product differentiation in the goods that the firms are producing. Remember, in the Cournot and Bertrand model, the products are homogeneous. So there is now a change from that idea to show that products are not homogeneous. And like the other models, there is a downward sloping demand curve and costless production. In some sense, Chamberlain's model is an extension of the Cournot model. Remember, when I was presenting to you the Cournot model, I read out one of the reviews of Cournot, and that economist had mentioned that Cournot has given enough work for down the line economists because he was a genius with the work that he did. So we are continuing with Cournot and his model. So how shall we explain Chamberlain's model? The first thing that we can do is we start off with the Cournot model. And Cournot model, you remember, you can have a look into that video on the Cournot model to quickly move into this particular diagram. So the firm, we have got the demand curve DD, and we have the demand curves CD for firm B, because it only produces the first half of the industry is taken over by the firm A, and the second half is what is left for firm B. So when firm E chooses a maximizing output of OXM, and for that OXM, he gets a price of OPM. Now, firm B enters into this market and he understands that OXM has already been produced by firm A, and now he can produce what is left over of this market XMD, and he decides to produce XMB. The blue line shows the quantity of output that firm B will produce. Now, at B also, firm's marginal cost will be equal to marginal revenue, and that is equal to 0 because we have assumed costless production. So the total industry output has now increased from OXM, which was a monopoly output, to that of OB, which is the output of both the firms together. When the industry output has increased from OXM to OB, then theory tells us that as the output expands, the price in the industry will also come down. So the price has come down from OPM to OP. At this stage, we will have to, till thus it is Cournot model, now we will have to see how we can explain the behavior of the firms when they are taking interdependent decisions. Now, what will rival firm A do? Firm rival has the option of increasing his output if he wants to, and that unsold portion of BD, if he wants, he can enter into that space and sell. But then what does firm A actually do? Firm A is also already experiencing a fall in the price of his product, and he understood the cause of that fall in the price of the product. So an increase in the output was a cause of the fall in the price of the product. So what does firm A do now? Firm A decides to reduce his output. Now firm A's reduction of output is from OXM to AXM. So he would now produce only AXM amount of output and not produce the earlier quantity OA. So he is more or less producing the same quantity as that of firm B. Firm B's output is XMB and firm A's output now will be only AXM. So both the firms are selling equal share of the market. How did this happen? This happened because firm A was able to understand that he was intelligent to understand that increasing the production would not make benefit from him, it will only reduce the prices further. So the rational thinking here is to reduce the output rather than increasing the output. So when the output of the industry has reduced from OB to only AB, then it indicates that the price should rise and price would have gone up to price OPM. So when the price is at OPM, both the firms are selling equal amounts in the market. They have an equal share of the market, AXM and XMB. So when this happens, both the firms look at it, analyze this particular behavior, and they come to a monopoly solution. So they are not willing to expand their output because they want to produce more and make more profit. Rather, they are more careful that not producing so much may increase their profit. So by doing such an activity, both the firms could reach monopoly price and reach monopoly output. This is what Chamberlain was trying to explain, that when firms are intelligent to understand the actions of the rival firms and take their action based on the action of the rival firm, then it is possible that firms will reach its stable equilibrium. It also means that firm B here realizes that it is better for firm B not to increase the output, though it can increase the output. He has already learned his lesson from firm A, that firm A has lost his price earlier, and if he does increase his output, he too will lose his price. Therefore, firm B decides that it is better to stop production at that output and enjoy the price at which firm A was selling his output. So this way, each of the firm, by understanding each other's behavior, decide to stay at the output that was stable for them and at the price that was monopoly price for them. This is what was Chamberlain's contribution. Now, we may not think it is much, but let us see the kind of change we are experiencing in the ideas of oligopoly. From independent decision, we have now come to interdependent decision, and now we have come to this idea that firms, when they take interdependent decisions and they are acting on the action of the other firm's decision, they are able to reach stable equilibrium and maximize industry's output and enjoy their profit, they maximize their profits. Now let's have an appraisal of Cournot's model. Of course, Cournot's model is an advance over the previous model because, as I have been telling, there have been changes that are away from that, from price taker to price maker, and from price maker of independent price firm to now we are talking about interdependent firm. We are now talking about monopoly price and monopoly output by both the firms. So here we are assuming that firms are sophisticated enough to realize their interdependence, and this leads to what we call as a stable equilibrium. Now, what is the criticism of it? Obviously, what happens when other firms join the industry? Will firm A and B behave the same way? This is the question that I asked in the beginning about the two vaccines that we have in the market. As of now, something like this will happen to both the firms in terms of their pricing. Now the question is, when the other imported vaccines also come into the market, how will the price and output of these two market players change? Or will the industry itself find a new equilibrium with a new price and a new quantity? So these are the ways we can understand how the traditional theories that we study have actually got relevance in real life. In fact, all these theories that we study are written from the observations of real life. They are simplified versions of real life to make further development in the same idea. That is what we are seeing in this oligopoly series. I shall read out one or two paragraphs of Chamberlain for you to know what he had in mind when he uh, explained this particular model. You too can read it. Businessmen may set their prices with reference to cost rather than demand, which is what it is. So, in the Chamberlain's model, he had simplified it to zero cost, but in real life, with the vaccines, they will fix their price only at the real cost. They cannot go beyond their cost of production. So, it means that whether they are willing to really fix the price above the cost, or what will be that cost that they are publicly stating. Businessmen may set their prices with reference to cost rather than to demand, aiming at ordinary rather than at maximum profit. Remember, B did not think of expanding its output and disturbing the profit margin that it was already getting, and more or less taking it for granted that they will continue to enjoy about their usual share of total business. So B decided to align with A's decision and maintain its output at such a level because it was already enjoying the profit that firm A could have got at that monopoly price. They take whatever business comes their way. This is also understandable. Firms take whatever business comes their way and expect others to do likewise because they know that if the other one rocks the boat, then both of them will lose because if when B came, A lost out, and B now knows that if B changes the output, A and B will lose out. So it is, in some sense, quite clear that firms are very cautious about each other's move, and in according to Chamberlain, they believe in this philosophy of live and let live. Let us see how our vaccine markets actually survive this particular challenge of the duopoly model. And he likened the duopoly, the oligopoly model to a game of chess. This is something that we know in the game of chess, the two players, they act independently, but it is interdependent actions, which means only after the action of one can the other player make the move. So here also, only when the one of the firm has made the move, the other one would make the move. This led to a series of studies later, including that of the game theory. Why should a businessman who acts with equal or rather ordinary intelligence in deciding not to make a price cut be accused of collusion? Are the two chess players colluding with each other to play the game? No, that's not happening. So here too, the two firms are not colluding. They are not, without collusion, they are able to arrive at equilibrium or of tacitly cooperating with somebody. They are not tacitly cooperating as well. The point is that the idea of cooperation in any sense is unnecessary to the result. So even without collusion, they can attain the stable equilibrium, and he extends it to the game of chess, though in chess we know that one of them finally loses the game. So we will have to wait and see how this industry really works out. And this appeared in one of his writings in Towards a More General Theory of Value, written in 1957. So thank you very much. I hope you are following these lectures and they are useful to you in terms of serious study of microeconomics. And I know that these videos have got long presentation. It is only to help you to make notes so that when you read up the textbook, you have more clarity on the subject if you need to. Thank you very much.